Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tuning our ears to something you probably take for granted when you're reading,
Hmm.
but it's surprisingly important: prosodic sensitivity.
Right.
Think of it like your inner ear for language.
Yeah.
Your ability to pick up on the rhythm, the emphasis,
Mhm.
the little musicality in spoken words.
Exactly. The ups and downs, the
Yeah,
stresses.
yeah. Now, we're not just going on a hunch here. We've immersed ourselves in a fascinating meta-analysis that's basically a super study that crunches the numbers from a whole bunch of other research.
The study of studies, essentially.
Exactly. We're talking about 53 studies looking at how this skill relates to reading individual words
Right.
and another 26 digging into reading comprehension. So quite a lot of data.
Solid base. Yeah.
Our mission today to really extract the core insights and understand just how this subtle ability impacts something as crucial as reading.
And there's some surprising twists.
Oh, yeah. Like what? Well, I know one involves the very first language you learned. That might play a bigger role than you think.
Precisely. This meta-analysis gives us that bird's eye view of a vast landscape of research. By pooling the data, like you said, from all those studies,
Yeah.
we can draw some really solid conclusions about how prosodic sensitivity and reading are connected.
Okay.
And the initial picture is quite telling.
Okay, let's get into this picture then. What did this massive collection of research actually reveal? What's the headline?
Well, the central finding is a noticeable link, what researchers call a significant overall correlation.
Huh?
They found a correlation of 0.34, R equals 0.34, between prosodic sensitivity and how well people read individual words.
334. Okay.
And when it came to actually understanding what they were reading comprehension, the correlation was very similar, 0.31.
0.31. Now, for those of us who don't, speak fluent statistics, what does a correlation in the zero point 0.3 range actually mean for you and me? Is that big?
Huh.
Small?
It's generally considered a moderate correlation in this field. So in simple terms, it suggests a definite trend.
Okay.
If you're good at picking up on the subtle rhythms and stresses in spoken language, you have strong prosodic sensitivity. You're also, well, likely to be a better reader,
Right.
both when it comes to sounding out words and grasping the meaning of texts.
So they tend to go together.
They tend to go together, yeah. It's not a perfect predictor, obviously. Reading is complex. But it's a clear indication that this sensitivity to spoken language plays a real part in reading ability.
So the big takeaway here is that how sensitive you are to the rhythm of speech has a tangible impact on how well you read.
Yes, though, as we'll see, it's not quite the whole story.
Right. That makes intuitive sense, though, doesn't it? You can almost imagine how being attuned to the natural flow and emphasis in speech could help you, I don't know, break down written words and understand sentence structure more easily.
Exactly. It kind of primes you.
But you mentioned some surprises were lurking in this research. What's the first unexpected turn?
Okay, yeah, here's where it gets really interesting. It turns out that the inherent rhythm of your very first language,
Your mother tongue.
yeah, your mother tongue, it has a significant influence on this connection.
How so?
The meta-analysis looked at something called the rhythmic class of the first language
Rhythmic class.
and
Okay.
discovered that it actually affected how strongly prosodic sensitivity
Huh?
correlated with both word reading and reading comprehension.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit more. Rhythmic class. What exactly are these different rhythmic classes, and how do they exert this influence on reading?
Think about the difference between a language like, say, Italian or Spanish,
Okay.
which often has a very even, almost like a sing-song rhythm, where syllables are roughly equal.
Right, syllable timed.
Exactly, often called syllable timed. And compare that to English, where some words and syllables get much more emphasis, more stress, and the timing is more based on those stresses.
This time.
That's the one. That underlying rhythm is basically what we mean by rhythmic class.
Hmm.
Well, the study doesn't get, bogged down in highly technical linguistic categories.
Mm-hmm.
The general idea is that languages have these distinct rhythmic profiles.
And that matters for reading.
It seems to, yes. Your first language's musicality, you could say, appears to leave a lasting imprint on how you approach reading. The crucial point is that the rhythmic environment you are immersed in from infancy seems to shape how your prosodic sensitivity interacts with the process of learning to read later on.
Wow. So someone who grew up speaking a language with a very, say, pronounced and consistent rhythm might develop a different kind of prosodic sensitivity
Uh-huh.
that then interacts with reading in a unique way compared to someone who spoke a language with maybe a more flexible or stress-based rhythm.
Precisely. That seems to be the implication. What's fascinating here is that our early auditory experiences with our native tongue seem to create a sort of template in our brains.
Right.
And that template then influences how we process the sound structure of language when we're learning to decode written words and understand sentences.
So that could explain why some studies find different results depending on the language background of the participants.
It absolutely could, yeah. It might be a reason why some studies find a stronger link between prosodic sensitivity and reading in speakers of certain first languages compared to others, some moderating factor.
That's a truly eye-opening insight. Really highlights how deeply ingrained our early language exposure is.
It really does.
Now, the study also delved into the specific reading task itself, didn't it? How does what you're actually doing when you read influence this relationship with prosodic sensitivity, particularly when it comes to reading individual words?
Yes, that's another important layer. It's not just about the person, it's also about the task.
Right. Like, think about the difference between quickly scanning a text message versus, I don't know, carefully trying to sound out a complex scientific term.
Exactly. One engages your sort of sound sense much more than the other.
Yeah, and that's the essence of this task-related prosodic level they talk about.
That's it, precisely. The meta-analysis found that what they called the task-related prosodic level did indeed influence the strength of the connection specifically between prosodic sensitivity and word reading.
Okay, task-related prosodic level, another term that could use a little unpacking for us. What does that look like in the real world of reading?
Okay, think about it like this. Some word reading tasks naturally require you to pay closer attention to the sound structure of the words than others.
Makes sense.
For instance, if you're faced with a list of, say, made-up words, pseudo-words that you've never seen before.
Right, like flibbertigibbet or something simpler maybe.
Yeah, or blicket. You have to read them aloud. You're really going to be relying heavily on your ability to process the individual sounds and the overall sound pattern, the stress, the rhythm,
Uh-huh. Which is where prosodic sensitivity comes into play.
directly.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you're reading a list of very common words, the and cat words, you instantly recognize by sight,
Sight words.
your sensitivity to the rhythm and stress might be less actively involved in just getting the word out. So the research suggests that when the word reading task demands more engagement with the sound-based elements of language, the link to your prosodic sensitivity becomes more pronounced. Stronger connection.
So if you're tackling unfamiliar words, or maybe words with complex sound patterns, your ear for the music of language is going to be a more valuable tool than when you're just reading words you already know by heart.
Exactly that. The demands of the particular reading task seem to modulate just how much your prosodic sensitivity contributes, at least when you're decoding individual words.
Okay. Now, we've explored how prosodic sensitivity relates to the mechanics of reading words, but the ultimate goal, of course, is usually to understand what we read, comprehension.
Right. The main event for most reading.
And the study indicates that the connection between good prosodic sensitivity and strong reading comprehension isn't, well, it isn't a direct one. What's the pathway there?
Yeah, this is a really crucial and perhaps somewhat surprising finding for some. The meta-analysis used a technique called structural equation modeling.
Okay, a fancy statistical method.
Pretty much. It allows you to test complex pathways. And it showed that prosodic sensitivity doesn't directly lead to significantly better reading comprehension.
Huh. So it doesn't just automatically make you understand better.
Not directly, no.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, its influence is primarily indirect.
Indirect, so it's working in the background somehow, influencing other skills that then boost comprehension.
Exactly. It acts through intermediaries.
Okay, so what are these intermediary skills, these stepping stones?
The study pinpointed several key skills that seem to mediate this relationship. Things like metalinguistic skills,
But linguistic,
vocabulary, and even your basic ability to read individual words accurately and fluently.
Okay, metalinguistic skills, that's our conscious awareness of language as a system, right? Like understanding the rules and patterns of language itself.
Precisely. That includes things like knowing that words are made up of individual sounds, it's phonological awareness, understanding how prefixes and suffixes change a word's meaning, morphological awareness,
Right.
and just being aware of grammatical structures, syntax.
So the theory is, how does prosody link to that?
Well, the theory is that having good prosodic sensitivity might make you more attuned to the sound patterns within language.
Okay.
Those subtle shifts in rhythm and intonation could, maybe, draw your attention to the underlying structure of words and sentences.
Hmm.
Make the boundaries clearer, perhaps.
Ah, so hearing the music helps you notice the grammar or the word parts?
Kind of, yeah. This potentially heightened awareness of language structure, the metalinguistic skills, can then lead to building a richer vocabulary.
Because you notice word parts and how they combine.
Maybe, yeah. And also a greater ability to decode words accurately in the first place. And it's these stronger foundational skills in vocabulary and word reading that ultimately pave the way for improved reading comprehension.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's like having a good ear for music doesn't instantly make you an amazing songwriter,
Right.
but it tunes you into the nuances, maybe helps you learn music theory, pick up chords faster, and that helps you appreciate or create music more deeply.
That's a great analogy, actually. Prosodic sensitivity is doing something similar for your reading.
Yeah.
It's supportive, foundational, rather than the final step itself for comprehension.
That analogy really clicks. It clarifies how prosodic sensitivity, while not directly causing better comprehension, plays this vital supporting role. So, after this deep dive into the meta-analysis, what are the most important things for us to, take away?
Yeah, I think the research really underscores two main points for you to keep in mind. First, while there is a clear connection, a moderate link, as we said, between how sensitive you are to the rhythm of spoken language and how well you understand what you read,
Hmm.
the strength of this link isn't fixed. It changes. It depends on individual characteristics, crucially like your first language,
Right, the rhythmic class.
and also the specific demands of the reading task itself. So context matters.
Okay, that's point one. What's the second?
Second, and perhaps even more significant, the positive impact of prosodic sensitivity on your reading comprehension largely depends on how it contributes to the development of those other fundamental language abilities.
The middlemen.
The middlemen, exactly. Your awareness of language structure, the breadth of your vocabulary, and your basic ability to decode words accurately and efficiently.
So it's not like a magic solution if you're struggling with reading comprehension, just get better prosody.
Definitely not. It's important, but it's not a magic bullet.
But it's definitely an important piece of the overall puzzle.
Exactly. Reading is this complex tapestry, right, woven from various interconnected skills. Prosodic sensitivity is one crucial thread in that tapestry, often working kind of behind the scenes in tandem with other abilities to support successful reading comprehension.
This has been a truly fascinating exploration. It's amazing to consider how our sort of innate sensitivity to the music of language has such a significant, even if often indirect, influence on our ability to navigate the world of written words.
It really puts a different spin on listening and reading.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, what's the key thought you'd like to leave our listeners with? Something to mull over.
Well, maybe consider this. The rhythm and intonation of the languages,
Yeah.
aren't just, abstract qualities of speech.
Right, yeah.
They might be subtly shaping the very way you process written information. So maybe ask yourself, could consciously paying more attention to these nuances, the prosody, both in the spoken language you hear around you, and maybe even in that internal voice you hear when you read, could that potentially deepen your understanding and engagement with the written world? It's just a question worth considering, perhaps, as you go about your day.
Definitely something to tune into. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
My pleasure.
Until our next exploration.